أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا لكل حول فإن من جودك الدنيا ودرتها فإن من جودك الدنيا ودرتها ومن علومك علم اللوح والقلم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والله يضاعف لمن يشاء صدق الله العظيم. وقال الله تبارك وتعالى في شأن حبيبه مخبرا وآمرا إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه. My dear respected ulama, elders, brothers, sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah, I very much appreciate being invited and asked to give lecture on two topics. One is a topic which I'll try, because we are all fasting, about food and about halal. And the other topic is about finance. So it's food and finance. And these are very important topics. Every topic is important, especially nowadays, considering what's been happening. It's a very important topic. I'll start with finance. And let's start with what Islam says about finance, about zakah, about sadaqah, about tax. And the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said Allah created the earth. And he said the earth was wobbling, was shaking. And the angel said, Ya Allah, the earth is shaking. So the Prophet, Allah Azza wa Jalla said, I will put mountains on the earth to stabilize it, to stop it shaking. So Allah did that. And then the angel said, Ya Allah, these mountains are so massive, it's so heavy. Look at the job that they've done, they've stabilized the earth. And they said, Ya Allah, have you made anything more powerful than these mountains? And Allah Azza wa Jalla said, yes, I have made iron more powerful than the mountains. If you think iron, we use to cut stone. The special steel blades are used to cut stone. So they are more powerful than the mountain. And the angel said, Ya Allah, anything more powerful than the iron? And Allah said, I have made fire more powerful than the iron. And again, if you know, fire melts iron. Ya Allah, have you made anything more powerful than the fire? Allah says, I have made water more powerful than the fire, because water can put out the fire. Ya Allah, have you made anything more powerful than the water? And the angels asked this question, and Allah Azza wa Jalla said, I have made wind more powerful than the water. And you know that the wind can evaporate water. If the Mediterranean, if you know the small space between Spain and I think it's Morocco, there's a small space in the Mediterranean. If you fill that up, within about 6,000 years, the Mediterranean will evaporate, will just disappear, because it's so hot. But because as it evaporates, it gets resupplied by the Atlantic, That's how powerful the wind is. And if you are on a planet like Neptune, where the winds are 14,000 miles an hour, no water survives. You wouldn't survive, you'd just be ripped into pieces. So that's how powerful Allah's made the wind. And then the angels asked, Ya Allah, have you made anything more powerful than the wind? Allah said, yeah. I have made the son of Adam more powerful than the wind. When he gives in charity with his right hand, and his left hand does not know about it. So that's how major Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regards charity and money, and the giving of money. And zakat is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It's fundamental. You can't escape. Now, if you're really young, you have no income, you have no property, zakat is just a theoretical pillar of Islam, because you don't have to pay it until you start getting wealth. So but I say to the youngsters that as you do grow up, and I say to the elders, as now you're, mashallah, mature, you have wealth, etc. Many people, they leave zakat. They leave it to the last minute, they don't calculate properly, but it's actually such an important part of Islam that Allah has made it compulsory. It is a farad. And if we don't pay, we're committing sin. And the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you don't pay zakat, your wealth becomes a snake on the Day of Judgment. This is before you're judged. It's on the Day of Judgment, it becomes a snake, and it wraps itself around you, and its fangs, they bury it into your body. And that's how you are on the Day of Judgment. And zakah is only 2.5%. You have to have above a certain amount, above a certain amount of gold, I think $7.5 of gold, something like that. It's about £2,000. You have to have that, above that, and you take away all your debts. You add how much people owe you as well, you add that in. You don't take into account mortgage or anything like that. Any secured loans, you don't take that into account. But the unsecured loans you take into account. You add up the value of the gold, not the price you paid for it, the current value. And then if you've kept that value of all that wealth for a full lunar year, you pay 2.5%. That's how simple it is. And people pay a little bit more to make sure, and some people pay in Ramadan, in fact most pay in the month of Ramadan, to get the maximum reward. But if you've invested all your money, and you have no gold, like this, then maybe there's no zakat to pay. Some people I know, they're very wealthy, but they pay very little zakat because all their money is invested. Zakat is also designed to keep money invested. If you have it lying around gathering dust, then zakat may become due. And if you're a farmer and you have animals, every year you pay from the animals. If you have crops, you pay from the crops. If you have even honey, you're making honey from bees, honeybees. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah says out of every 10 jars, you have to give one as zakat. Although other ulama don't agree with that. So that's how important zakah is. And it shows Islam is not just rituals, 5 times prayer and hajj and fasting. It's dunya as well. It's looking after people. I asked a person who was involved in insurance, I said, what's the definition of insurance? And he said, definition is this: the majority help the minority who are in trouble. And that is what zakah is all about. That is what charity is all about. That is what Bayt al-Mal is all about. So it's a principle of Islam that you have an amount of money so the needy can be helped. And zakah has, I think, about 8 types of people you can give to. Like, for example, the one who is destitute, if they've travelled and they're stuck, they run out of money, you can give like that. The one who is distributing zakat, you can pay him some money to distribute zakat, because it can be quite a complicated job. So you have to pay somebody to do that. So there are 8 categories, I believe, that you can use for zakat. You can't use to build a mosque for zakat. So zakat is only for certain categories. But it shows that it's absolutely essential that even if there was nobody who needed zakat, we would still have to collect it. That's because it's compulsory. We still have to collect it. And sadaqah is you give charity. The Prophet ﷺ, he never accepted zakat. And he only accepted gifts. If people gave for zakat, he used to give for zakat. And charity is so amazing in Islam that once a man came to Rasulullah ﷺ and he said, Ya Rasulullah ﷺ, I have cohabited with my wife while I'm fasting in the month of Ramadan. What do I do? Because I committed sin. He was a very old man. And the Prophet said, peace be upon you, you must free a slave. Now, Islam has this in many areas, you free a slave, because Islam wanted to abolish slavery. And look how beautifully they did it. Allah didn't send a message, right, slavery is abolished. He made it so that people would do it out of happiness, out of necessity, and not imposed it upon them, because it was such a strong institution at that time. So Allah made it easy for the people. Eventually slavery was abolished, because you have to free a slave if you've made this mistake. So the man said, I have no slave. I'm very poor. He goes, fine. He goes, fast for 60 days, continuous for 60 days. He said, I'm too weak. I can't fast 60 days. He said, fine, feed 60 people. I can't. I haven't got money to feed 60 people. So the Prophet said, okay, just sit down. And they both sat. Within a few minutes, this man came with a big basket of dates on his head. And he saw the Prophet and he gave to the Prophet, and he said, I want to give this as a gift. I said, fine, thank you. And he gave this basket of dates to this old man. And the Prophet said, peace be upon him, okay, give this to charity, and you'll be forgiven. And the old man looked at the dates, a big basket of dates. And it was a staple diet. And the man said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who should I give this in charity to? He said, to the poorest man in your village. And the old man said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is no man poorer than me. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he smiled. You know, when he smiled, it means he's so happy about something. And it's such a beautiful thing. You know, his teeth used to shine. Nur used to come out of his blessed mouth. And he was smiling. And he said, you keep it. So what's happened? A man's committed, it's a major sin, alright? You have to free a slave, it's not minor. And at the end of it, he gets a gift. And because of that gift, here's a present and you're forgiven. That's how important charity is. Now I want to talk about investments and finance in the modern world. Some people say, for example, insurance is not allowed. I don't know if you've heard that. I've heard it. When I was young, I've heard it. And I asked the person, why is it not allowed? He goes, because you can't get something for nothing. Islam means you have to invest, your money should take a risk. I said, well, I don't agree with that. I said, in Islam, don't you give gifts? Don't you accept gifts? Aren't you getting something for nothing? In Islam, if you're in trouble, then you get charity, sadaqah, then you get zakat. Aren't you getting something for nothing? In Islam, don't you get mirath, inheritance? Aren't you getting something for nothing? He's quiet. I said, you can't use that to make something haram. You have to use a proper Quranic verse or a hadith. You can't use a little bit of analogy, a wrong analogy. I said, what is the principle of zakah? The majority help the minority. Principle of sadaqah, the better off help the needy. I said, that's what insurance is. Insurance is an Islamic principle. I said, when you're in trouble, there's a pot of money to help you. When your house burns down, there's a pot of money to help you. When your car is stolen, there's a pot of money to help you. Even being a member of the AA or RAC, that's an insurance policy. So what do you do? I'm not going to become a member of the AA, it's haram. That's nonsense. It's not haram. You are paying for a service. And when you're in trouble, the service comes to help you. So the principle of insurance is an Islamic principle. The fact that they make a lot of money, yes, you might say that's a bit unfair, right? But the principle is not haram. And I haven't heard any convincing evidence to, for otherwise. If you have some, afterwards we can talk, but I haven't heard any. So I would say the principle of insurance is allowed. Now, in terms of riba, very, very controversial topic in some areas. The riba Allah has forbidden. Riba is usury. Now, people talk about usury and they mention interest is the same thing. But let me explain what usury is. Usury is exploitation. You exploit somebody. So you say, give me £100. Sorry, I will lend you £100. But next week I want £200 back. That's unfair. That's exploiting someone in need. That's haram. Or you say, right, until you pay me back, I'm going to use your car. I'm going to keep your car, I'm going to use it, it's mine, until you pay me back. Again, you're exploiting somebody. What Islam requires is you give £100, you should get £100 back. That's what Islam requires. Or you invest your money and you share in the profit, you share in the loss. Yeah, that's what Islam requires. Now I want to talk about interest. The problem we've got here is money loses its value. If I had £100, if we did 50 years ago, we had £100, you could buy a good car for that. Now you have £100, you can't even buy a good tyre for a car. If you want a run-flat tyre like Pirelli, you can't, no way. So £100 has lost its value. So 50 years ago, if I gave £100 to somebody, and 50 years later I want £100 back, I think that's unfair. Because money has lost its value. And the reason it's lost its value is this: if you look at your note, what you see on your note is, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £10 or the sum of £20. Have you seen that on the notes? MashaAllah, some people, I'm glad you have. Read the notes, all right? Read what you've got. And what your note is, it's not a value. What it is, it's an IOU from the Bank of England. The Bank of England is saying, we have gold in our vault, and that is the security for your note. That's what a note is. The paper has no value. It's a promise that has value. And in Islam, you used to have a coin which had value. It would be a gold coin. So people will weigh the coin, yes, this is, and that has value. And if you look, even now, despite the strength of the dollar and the yen, or the weakness and the Chinese currencies, whatever, people are going for gold. Because Islam has said 1400 years ago, this is your currency, gold. You can try everything else, you always go back to gold. And that's what countries have done. And that's why the guy's payable on gold. So people go back to gold. The amount of gold a country's got, like in Fort Knox, the dollar is meant to be undermined by the gold that it's got. As well as other things, like the strength of the economy, as well as other things. But ultimately, that's what the bank is saying. So the money loses its value because money isn't money anymore, it's a promise. So the argument people give is that if you give someone £100, in 5 years' time, to get a little bit more back is fair on you. That's the argument. Because number one, You belong to an organization that's lending the money, you have administration costs, you have losses and gains, you have like this, you have loss of currency, and then what they've done is they've called it interest. They've called it interest. Like a building society is owned by the members. So a building society is not designed to make a profit and to exploit the members. But the building society has costs, admin costs, office costs, salaries. And it has cost of borrowing, so it calls it interest. Now that is not exploitation. That is not riba in the true sense of the word. I'm not going to issue a fatwa here saying it's halal or haram. I'm just trying to explain how the system works. Alright? Because there's no ijma on this. There's different ulama saying different things, and unfortunately there's so much fear over the word interest that they put it with riba, and I'm saying no, I don't think it's fair to put the same together. Huge interest rates, I would agree, is definitely riba. Like you have these, you pay, you borrow £1, after a year, you have to pay £3,000 back. Yeah, that is riba, 100%. That is exploitation. Right? And no, they exist, and it's legal, can you believe it? It's legal. But a small amount of, if you like, admin cost and like this, and if you collect together its interest, I would say I don't think you should call it riba. It could be, but there's no ijma on this. So I'm just trying to explain. And to be honest, the fact is most people have mortgages. Now, Imam Abu Hanifa said, Rahmatullah alayhi, La riba bayn al-Muslim wal-Harbi fi dar al-Harb. He said that there is no riba, usually, with your enemy who you're fighting against in battle. I don't know if you know, sometimes battles last many years. So you fight 1 month, you rest 1 month, you fight 1 month, you rest 1 month, right? It's not a continuous battle. Most battles are actually waiting. Fighting is small, the waiting time, preparation time is huge. If you follow the theory of military encounter, that's what happens, right? Preparations for battle is very short in comparison. So, during a time of war and battle, you can negotiate and you have trade and you like this. And Imam Abu Hanifa said, Rahmatullah, he said, at this time, don't worry about riba. If you want to exploit them, you can exploit them. Alright, do you see? So it's not a hard and fast rule, but whether we are in Darul Harb, whether these are our enemy, the other ulama decide. Okay, but I'm just trying to explain the intricacies of this. I'm not saying riba is halal, riba is haram. What I'm saying is, can you say a small amount of interest is a riba? That's what I'm saying. I would say possibly not. Because you're getting the value of the money back. Because you're losing out otherwise. Plus you're paying for admin costs like this. And to be honest, when I discussed with bankers who have tried to make halal investment, in fact, what I found is that they actually work it out in a different way. You end up with high interest rate. Because they don't want to take a loss. They want to guarantee a profit. So I said, that's not proper investment. When the proper investment is you take a risk, I take a risk. And if we both succeed, we share the profit. The banks don't want to do that. That's not a problem. We're stuck with a very difficult, crafty, exploitative banking system. They're just there to make money. They don't care who they hurt. So that's a little bit about finance. I want to talk about food now, and about the halal and haram aspects of food. Very generally speaking, the halal in Islam is what's good for you. Okay? Allah Azza wa Jalla has made halal what is good for us and made haram what is bad for us. Always bear that in mind. Okay? So, he has made animals that live off vegetation, most of them are halal. Sheep, goats, cows, camels. They don't eat meat, they eat the grass, etc. They are halal. Deer, these are halal. There is an exception, that's, for example, the pig. We don't even use its skin. It's totally haram, totally unclean. And you might try and find a biological, medical reason. If you find one, great. We don't need one, because if Allah says it's haram, it's haram. We don't need a reason. Even if it was found that it was good for us to eat, we still wouldn't eat it. It's haram. But I would say there is a spiritual reason why Allah has made pig haram. If you look at pig's behavior compared to other animals, it actually goes beyond a certain limit. So Allah has made it haram. And the animals which are halal, you have to do ziba. You have to cut them with a sharp knife, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and you have to cut the throat and let it bleed while it's alive, then it becomes halal. If you hunt an animal and you shoot and you hunt for food, not for sport, and in that time, if the animal dies while you're hunting, then it's halal, because when you shoot, you say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, like this. But the idea is after you've shot it, when you reach it, if it's still alive, you should do ziba. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. That's hunting for food. What animals are haram on land are the ones, apart from pig, are the ones that eat meat. So dogs, cats, tigers, lions, these things we can't eat. And those animals that have mixed parentage, like a mixture of a horse and a donkey, is it a mule? We don't eat those. We don't, they're not considered to be good for us. And from the insects, the only one allowed is the locust. We don't eat the dirty animals, little dirty ones, like the slug and the worms and the ants like this. The only one permissible is the locust. So Allah has decided what's good for us. Now from the animals that fly, the same principle applies. Those which eat meat, like the eagles and the falcons, we don't eat them. Those which don't, like the ducks and the chickens and the pigeons, we're allowed to eat, and the doves we're allowed to eat. From the sea, there's a difference of opinion. The Holy Quran says everything from the sea is permissible. And the Prophet said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Allah has permitted all the fish from the sea. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah says that only the fish are permissible, because the Prophet has said only the fish was given. And the other fuqaha, Imam Shafi, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, peace be on Allah's mercy be on them all, they have said no, the Quran says all of them, so all of it. And the Prophet just confirms us that the fish are part of all of it. It's a difference of opinion what the Prophet meant. And there's other evidences as well. Okay? So, because we're Hanafis, we only allow the fish. And things like prawns, they are halal, they are considered to be makruh, because they don't really look like fish, but almost they look like fish. But other animals, like the shellfish and the starfish, and we don't eat those. And lobsters and stuff. I mean, some people say makruh and stuff like that. So again, difference of opinion. But generally, fish you're okay with. You don't have to do ziba. You can take them out of the sea alive and you can eat, or the rivers you can eat. Now, why do we cut? Why do we do ziba? The reason is this: because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires us to be sure that this animal was sacrificed for Him, not for any false god, not for any idol. That's the reason. It's a spiritual reason. Right? Now, There are a number of halal boards around. There's a Halal Food Authority, there's a Halal HMC, there's a Halal Authority Board which I belong to, and there's a few others. And the reason we started the Halal Authority Board, because we wanted to be sure what was going on. And this is what I've discovered, okay? I'll talk about stunning in a little bit. This is what I discovered. I discovered that the industry is actually quite a good industry. I've been very impressed. When I go to abattoirs, when I go to factories, even there's a famous restaurant chain, I won't mention the name, I refused to eat from them until I audited them. After I ate from them, I said, no, I trust them now. I found the industry to be generally very, very clean, very sensible, very transparent, and very keen to make sure halal is halal. Right? I'll give you some examples. We went to one factory, they used to make cakes for the airline industry. So when you, on a plane, get a little tray, you open, there's a little cake there. That's what they, so this is how we do it. I said, send me all the ingredients, every single ingredient. Now, whichever ingredient they say for example, they say chocolate is part of the ingredient. Because it's called a, I'm sorry, I know you're fasting, it's called a chocolate chip stuffing, right? That's what it's called. Right, so bits of chocolate are in there. So I said, fine, give me the ingredients of the chocolate. So they do, I check it all. It says whey powder. I said, where's this whey powder from? So we go back to the source, because this is a global industry, right? It doesn't all come locally, it comes from all over the world. So I said, where's it from? So we go back to the manufacturer of the whey powder, and he tells us what's in the whey powder. We don't take the company's word for it. The company who's making it, they just collect the ingredients, they make it. So every ingredient is checked all the way to the source. That's how we do it. I don't know about the others, that's how HAP does it. I want to be sure this is halal. Gelatin. There's halal gelatin from animals, there's halal gelatin from vegetables, and there's haram gelatin. Right? You'd be surprised, there's halal gelatin from cows, there is. Again, this from one supplier is from Norway, can you believe it? And we actually phoned the person who checked the abattoir. He works for a local mosque. He goes, no, alhamdulillah, I guarantee it. It's my certificate is genuine. That's how detailed we check it. So though regularly, every time we produce gelatin, they have to supply a certificate. It comes in a huge tub, 1-ton tub, and that lasts for months. Right? So it's not just the fact it's from a halal cow. They check everything else is halal around it. We even check the hand wash. The hand wash should be alcohol-free. The machine grease should be alcohol-free. The packaging should be alcohol-free. The ink should be alcohol-free. I won't say who, but there's one abattoir I went to. The system was beautiful. When I checked the ink they were using to stamp the carcass, it had alcohol in it. I said, I can't approve this. Because we didn't know. I said, well, you should know. The stamp, it didn't say halal, it had their logo, right? It had alcohol in it. So they had to change it, and they changed it. So, and they were very happy to change it. A hand wash as well. I said, sorry, alcohol-free. He goes, but we wear gloves. I said, sorry, doesn't matter you wear gloves. I want no doubt this should be halal without any doubt. So, they had to change all their hand washes. That's how strict we are. But they're happy to do it. And they didn't know it was a mistake from them. Like, I don't know if you know the knives or the abattoirs, they wash them every 1.5 hours. After 1.5 hours, all the knives are taken for washing, and then they come back. The guy who does the slaughtering, his knife, and by the way, all the knives are put in boiling water. While they're doing it, they put in boiling water, take another knife out, use it, put it back, another knife out. So every animal gets a fresh knife, and then after 1.5 hours, they all get washed. That's how clean the system is. Okay. So anyway, back to this stuffing. Right, this chocolate chip stuffing. I looked at the cleaning sheets. I said, how often do you clean? They told me. I said, oh, okay, fine. I said, this is what I want. Because they have a deep clean. Deep clean means everything gets jet washed. Right? It's horrific cleaning, and it gets chemically cleaned. And they take swabs to make sure even the inside is clean. And also they have special lights that they use to make sure no food residue. Bioluminescent lights they have as well. And they investigate. That's how detailed they go to, because you've got to remember, this industry is allergen-free. You can't have contamination because people have allergen illnesses. So it has to be allergen-based, and that's why the cleaning is so thorough. It's more clean than we clean in our kitchens. So I said, well, that's fine. I said, but after a deep clean overnight, you only have halal production in the morning for your stuffings. After that, I don't care if you do halal production. So we made sure that that was done. And in addition, I said, the pens you use, because they're using pens to tick the sheets, I said, you only have halal pens. So what do you mean halal pens? There's no such thing. I said, no, what I mean is this. These pens are used for the halal production. The other pens are used for the haram production. Even the cleaning, the mops and the brushes, I said, you have special ones for halal. That's how detailed we went. And they agreed. And they said, this is the most thorough audit we've had. I said, good. So we can be sure that what we're eating is 100%, not even there's 0.1% doubt, 100%. Alright, so that's why when we gave it a certificate, we give, all the way to the source, the ingredients, and the production, even the packaging, even the ink, has to be halal. Alright, I don't think we can do better than that. By the way, even the transport has to be halal. If the lorries come and it's had pig in it, sorry, you can't use that. Unless you prove to me it's totally washed. So that's how thorough we do. Even in the deep freeze, separate area for halal. Even though everything's packaged, doesn't matter. I want everybody to be sure this is a halal section. So it took them a month to get that stuff in 100% halal. And only then I ate it. I refused to eat it. I said no. Once we audited it, they passed, gave the certificate, and they said, we'll make one for you. I said, fine, now I'll eat it. Right? And because of that, the range is now expanded mushroom, because 100% halal. I went to a sandwich factory. You'd be surprised. The meat comes from the chicken. It was a halal chicken sandwich. The chicken came from Thailand and Brazil. This is a sandwich, right? The margarine comes from, I think it was Holland or Belgium, one of the European countries. The bread is local, the vegetables are local, like the lettuce and stuff. The spices from India. This sandwich has travelled maybe 10,000 miles before it comes to your hand. That's how global the industry is. We checked everything. And we made sure that the line they were on, deep cleaned and only halal production. Even we said the lines next to you must be halal as well. What do you mean? I said vegetarian only. And they agreed. Alright? They had to agree. We wouldn't allow it anywhere. I said, look, what if one person moves from one line to the other? Because that's not allowed. I said, I know it's not allowed, but I want to remove any doubt. They said, no, we have a very strict rule on this. Because of allergen contamination, we can't take any risk. I said, well, I want to take even less risk. So they had to agree. So after that, I accepted to eat the sandwich. Before that, I didn't. So I'm very impressed with the industry. Now what's happened in terms of the different authorities, unfortunately some are not as thorough as us. I won't mention names. But some, they don't go right for an ingredient, they go all the way to the source, which you have to do. Take cosmetics. You know, one cosmetic or one tablet can have hundreds of ingredients. We have to check each one. Do you know some tablets have snake venom in them? Not the tablets we have, but the ones which are used to, stop your skin sagging and stuff. They have snake venom. Can you believe? So we have to check all the ingredients. One of our clients, they make, I suppose I could say 7 C's. We have a list of their halal tablets. Most are halal, but some are not halal. Okay. And we have, mashallah, also in, is it Germany or Romania and Iceland? They produce tablets. We're inspecting them at the moment. Okay, so they want halal. They may not label it as halal, but on our certificate, what's halal is labeled. So pharmaceuticals, again, very big industry. And very few people are certifying halal. If you look at it, it says approved vegetarian, what if it contains alcohol? And what sort of alcohol? There are different types of alcohol. There are different types of fat. Now in Hanafi school, if you change a molecule from one thing to another thing, it could become halal or it could become haram. Give you an example. Wine is haram, but vinegar is halal. Now some people said, oh, there's 3 types of vinegar. There's spirit vinegar, there's malt vinegar, and there's wine vinegar. I said, right. So they said to me, only malt vinegar is halal, the others are haram, because one is wine vinegar and one is spirit vinegar. I said, where did you get that from? Because from the name. I said, listen, the name doesn't mean it contains wine. The name means where it's from. Wine vinegar is from wine, but it's vinegar. Spirit vinegar is from spirits, but it's vinegar, like this. I said, the name of the chemical sometimes is used for its origin, not for its content. And it's halal, because all the wine's been changed into vinegar. It's a molecular change. There's no wine left. And if you drink a tub of vinegar, you won't get drunk. That's the test. All right? If you get drunk, it's haram. But you're not going to get drunk. And the reason Hanafi school allows this is because it actually is correct. I'll give you an example. We have wheat, we have a cereal, we have vegetables, tomatoes, potatoes. All these are from the ground. Now, we use manure as fertilizer, isn't it, in the ground? But from the fertilizer comes the potato and the tomatoes and the wheat. Does that become haram because it's fertilized by fertilizer, by manure? No, it's not. It's halal because the molecules have been changed. Even if an animal dies in the field, like a bird, and it gets absorbed by the ground, even the crops that grow out from that are halal. Because you're not eating dead bird, you're eating wheat and potato and tomato. The molecules have been changed. So this is why we have this system. So in this industry, there are many molecules that are changed in the process. And we have to look at each one before we declare it as halal. We're having a debate, the plastic that we use for sandwiches. We're having a debate as to whether I would authorize it to be halal. Because I said it contains, we call it fatty amide. That was a molecule. And I said, I'm sorry, it's a fatty amide. I'm not authorizing this. It's from a fat. He said, no, Shaykh. He said, it's from a fat, it's not a fat anymore. I said, no, you've made a fat into another fat. I'm not authorizing it. It took 2 chemists to persuade me. And by the way, one was a Muslim I knew very well. I asked him. He goes, no. He goes, listen, an amide is totally artificial. It doesn't appear anywhere in the world naturally. And he said, it's not a fat. It's called a fatty amide because of its origin. But its molecular structure is totally different to a fat. It's not a fat. It's actually part of the amide group. And the reason they add it is to make the plastic slippery. Does little bit slippery, easy to peel off them like this. So after him and his researcher convinced me, and I said, fine, I'll sign it now. At amide, I'm happy with it. Because the molecules have been changed. The amide is now a totally different substance, different melting point, different physical properties, different boiling point, everything's different about it. It's not the same as it was. Like wine into vinegar, spirit into vinegar, like this. Manure into crops. We drink cow's milk. Where's cow's milk from? From the cow's body, where you have a mixture of so many different things. But it's pure, it's allowed. So, just in summary, we've talked a little bit about finance, a little bit. And I've tried to be careful what I said about riba and interest. I've just tried to explain my understanding of it. I haven't issued any fatwas, okay? Because I'd rather issue with ijma, not on my own. And ulama, for some reason, are very scared about this topic, right? In private, I've spoken to many ulama, and I know their views. In public, they're not willing to say, right? And so I'm not willing to say. In private, I can say what I think. But I've explained what interest, what riba, what usury, exploitation is. Allahu alim, Allah knows better. And about food, I've explained which animals are halal. And I've missed one category out. We talked about land animals, we talked about birds, we talked about sea animals. What we haven't talked about is natural liquids that exist. Natural liquids, what do you mean? I mean, for example, water. Water is halal. And by the way, do you know, some water, they filter over animal bones. So we can't have that water. So when someone phoned me, should we get our water checked for whether it's halal? Can we stamp it halal? Because we think that's silly. I said, no, you should get it checked. Water should be stamped halal. And it should be checked because some water is filtered over animal bones. It's very few, only specialized waters. But that's what happens. So yeah, you should get it checked. Honey, natural liquid, again, it's halal. So like this. So these couple of things are natural liquids that occur, and they are halal. There are a couple more, but you get the picture. That's all I have to say. May Allah Azza wa Jal help us and guide us to what is halal in terms of finance and in terms of food. Ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Are there any questions people would like to ask? Oh, sorry, Islam. Yeah, let me explain Islam. HFA allow something called machine slaughter. Now, machine slaughter is when a blade cuts the chickens. So the chickens are all stunned, so they're alive. Because there's two types of stunning. There is stun to stun, stun to kill. Stun to stun means after a few minutes they recover. Right? And it's very light stunning. It's very, very light. They do recover. And there's heavy stun, they're dead. Right? So there is one group, HFA, they allow machine slaughter. Chickens are stunned, they're all hanging upside down, and the blade just goes round and round. Whether or not the bead is set at the beginning, that's what I've heard it is. Whether or not a tape is playing, I don't know about that. All I know is, their fatwa is this, that if it's said that at the beginning, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, then all the chickens are halal. Right? And a tape might be playing, I'm not sure, because I haven't seen it. Yeah, this is what I've heard. We don't allow that. We allow light stunning, but we insist there must be a Muslim person doing the slaughtering saying Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. If you want more production, you get more slaughter. So usually there's 4, 5, 8 like this lining up, Bismillah, Allah, Bismillah, like that. Okay? And you can do quite a lot. I've seen lamb slaughtered. They do easily about 400 or 500 an hour, one person. Easily. Because the system is set up so amazingly. You know. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, the next one goes. He puts a knife, takes the next one. Bismillah, Allah Akbar, puts a knife, takes the next knife. Bismillah. That's how fast it can be. And in the slaughter, they are stunned, and I've seen every animal's moving. When the blood was coming out, every animal was moving to show actually to the life. So that's stun to stun, and that's machine slaughter. We don't allow that, but I know HFA allow that, because I've spoken to them directly, and that's what he said to me. HMC don't allow any stunning at all. They know it has to be unstunned. But we have an ijma. We gathered some scholars in Hijaz, there are about 30, I think, scholars, and they said, no, we accept stun to stun is halal, but machine slaughter is not. So that's the ijma in the UK. And if you look at places like Australia and New Zealand, 100% they're all stunned. And what they do is, again, I've heard, I haven't seen, I've asked for confirmation, every 50 chickens, one goes off the line and is taken off the hook, and they watch it recover, just to be absolutely sure. So it's all stun to stun. And their production is absolutely huge. But again, it's all hand slaughter, which we check. Okay, so that's the summary about stunning. Now there's lots of rumour around. Oh, 1/3 of all chickens die in stunning. That's a rumour, it's wrong. Okay? We specify in our standards the voltage, the current, and the frequency. All three combine to determine whether the chicken is stunned to stun or stunned to kill. You know? The frequency is as important as the current, the amperage. And we have in our specification exactly how much. And we check that when we go there at the abattoir. Okay, so the ijma is stun to stun is okay. And that's a light stunning. Any questions?
You said about insurance, and it's okay, but it's how you live with all our insurance.
Yeah, no, they call it, if somebody dies by mistake, what they do is they demand some money. They call it blood money in this country, but that's Islamic. But the person can't pay that amount of money.
You have that, so.
Yeah, I know, but if you have an accident, you have to pay the money. But it's halal insurance. I don't understand why they don't accept it. It's actually a very good system. Protects your car, protects your valuables, protects your possessions. I can't see any reason to call it haram. And I still haven't found a reason. The only reason I found is those three I mentioned. You're getting something for nothing, which I don't agree with, and your money's not being put at risk. I don't agree with that. The principle is the majority help the minority. Look, there's no zakat in this country, you know, collected nationally, and it's not a Muslim country. So if someone's house burns down, and it's your biggest investment, you're absolutely stuck. Or a person dies, people say life insurance is haram. I said, no, it's not. It's not haram. What if a man dies when he's young? How does he leave his family? With what? If his family has something. I can't see any reason to call it haram. I've heard a few reasons, but they're not strong enough. Sorry, I'll come back to you.
You said, okay, some other fellows that I was about 200 animals or 2,000, and then they're producing 6,000 in the same one.
Yeah.
How do you justify that they're allowed?
Yeah, that's a very good question. What we do what we call a mass balance. So, for example, we find a day, we say, right, who was here on that day? Okay, these three slaughterers were here. Right, how many animals were produced on that day? We just use a random day. And if it looks suspicious, we'll look up more days. So that's how we do it. And in fact, they only can hand slaughter because there's no machine around. If there's a machine slaughter, then we'd be very suspicious. But so far, the abattoirs we've checked, it's just hand slaughter, there's no machine there, there's no blade. So we do a mass balance. Similarly, if someone says, all our chicken comes from this supplier, we say, fine, give us the invoices for the last year. So we make sure how much they've ordered from that supplier is how much they produced. So we do that as a mass balance, as part of the audit. Because, again, to stop that, they might get cheap haram chicken somewhere else. By law, they have to keep all the paperwork, so we check all the paperwork. If I have to, I phone the supplier up. And I ask them, check the records, this is how much you sent. And I go to them and I email them or I phone them up. That's to the detail you go to. Because they have, number one, they have a halal certificate. Number two, we send them a questionnaire to make sure everything they're doing is halal. Any suspicious on the questionnaire will reject it.
When they were all loaded up, they forgot to put the stamp on it. So how was the name of it? Halal chicken.
Well, no, if they forget to put the stamp.
Just put that stamp on it.
No, it's not a stamp. No. It's the certification of the abattoir. It's like when we certify an abattoir, we have to let other people trust us. We say, no, we've done this, these are our standards, we've done all this, and we've checked the license of every slaughterman. We've spoken to, when I went to Ireland, I called the slaughterman. I said, what do you say? I said, how often are you sick? I said, any suspicions you have? I asked him, how many people are, I asked him all the questions. I was totally satisfied he was telling me the truth. He had taqwa. And therefore, I now trust that abattoir. Because when he's sick, they have a replacement, his brother, like this. So just like people have to trust our certificates, we do a thorough job. We don't trust a certificate on face value. Certificate is not enough. We ask additional questions to the abattoir. If we need to, we will visit them. And the company will have to pay for it if we have suspicions. I haven't accepted every abattoir abroad. I've actually rejected some. Because I said this paperwork is not enough. They're not answering my emails. Who's a contact? This certificate is 1 month left to run. So, for example, the Norway one, we phoned the mosque, we phoned the guy doing it. He goes, no, it's my certificate. So we check all the way as best we can.
What about all this tin halal meat and all that kind of things?
We haven't certified any to date, but I'd like to go to a factory for this.
Everything's available, sausages,
Yeah.
meat, all.
One thing people ask me is, what do these people know about halal? These are non-Muslims producing this. Yeah. So one thing we insist on is you must have halal training. From the management right down to the people. They must know what halal is. And I'll tell you one company, it's a huge company in the northeast. And what the technical manager said to me, she goes, I showed the management a video on what's halal, what's haram. And I showed it to them twice. I said, Muslims are so sensitive to this that we can't afford any doubt in what's halal and what's haram. That's what she said. So I showed it twice. And I said, we are very sensitive, because when I give presentations, I say, for us, it's our life and death. I said, for you, it's just production. I said, it's not acceptable. You have to know how important it is. And if I get a feeling that they don't really care, I'm sorry, they're not going to get certified. I'll give you an example. There was one restaurant chain. They gave me 5 supplies of meat. I rejected 3 of them straight away. And I only allowed 2. And I said, prove to me now, before I certify, these 3 are not in your production line. Because you can buy the meat, it takes a week for it to go through, and then another week for it's being sold. I said, I'm not certifying until all these 3 abattoirs, 1 was from Ireland, 2 was from Ireland. I said, I'm not certifying this. They haven't got a certificate, not a proper letter, not answering my emails, and there's no way I'm certifying this. So I'm only certifying the guys that we can trust, that we know. And they changed them, they changed the suppliers.
Especially big animals, like camels.
Yeah.
Does it have to be lying on the floor and killing it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You just got to cut the throats.
While he's standing.
Yeah, you can do that while it's done. Because they're too big, you can't.
Moving above the floor.
You can reach I don't know if you've seen that as camels being cut, but the guy gets covered. Okay, the guy gets covered in blood. If he doesn't want to standing up, yeah, he gets absolutely covered. No, it's near the neck, it's on the neck. That's the way it has to be done. That's the way it should be. And it's got to be the neck. It's got to be the neck. Yeah, well, that's wrong. Unless they want to lose it. Yeah, I mean, see, can you be a Muslim country doing that? Then that's really bad, isn't it? There are movements in the Middle East for them to create some standards as to what is halal, what's haram. Every country has different standards, and we welcome that. I think that's important. So they must know what they're getting. Sorry, I think...
My question was, with insurance, you talked about halal and haram, the lengths that you go to. What about where they invest their money, in their funds and stuff like that?
Yeah. No, you're right. Unfortunately, there's been not much progress in this. There are ethical firms, they're called ethical insurance, but ethical doesn't necessarily mean ethical for us, because they might be investing in, for example, breweries and stuff like that. So for us, that's haram. But what I'll say is this: if a person, say a person doing a business, and he's earning 90% halal and 10% haram. Say he's got a restaurant, he's selling alcohol, but mostly business is food. Some ulama say, we don't accept a single penny from him, it's all haram. But I say, on the day of judgment, when he gets judged by Allah, he won't get judged for 100% haram, he'll get judged for 10% haram. So therefore, if someone says, I can take some money from him, and because 90% is halal, you can distinguish between the halal and the haram. Similarly, if you're investing in a huge organization and they make 10%, 20% from haram, it's up to your heart whether you want to invest with them.
And the second part of that question, the thing is, I'm involved in insurance myself. And, I've looked at one time to change my occupation, but I think absolutely everything you look at, there's something bad in virtually whatever you do, there's a positive link. Second thing is, to me, insurance, it's all pretty much a fraud anyway. Whenever you try to claim something, they're very unethical in them paying out. They will always look for a reason not to pay out. What do you have to say?
Nowadays, I agree with that's what's happening. I agree with you, that's what's happening. The principle is still halal, but the practice, unfortunately, is a long way from it. I do agree with you, because I've had some claims that they've just basically said no.
I think the only way is this, because I've been involved in it such a long time, and normally fine. I think some of my practices probably aren't brilliant, but at the end of the day, to me, it's justifiable to me if the people that are dealing with you are unjust. As long as I think morally what I'm doing with something is correct, I will still do it. But point blank, each and every single time, even when it comes to life insurances, they will always look at some reason not to pay. That is, the industry to me, insurance is a fraud in itself. Okay.
Well, mashallah, this is someone who actually works in the industry. I mean, I have to, go to your expertise and experience. But again, I'll say the principle, when this gentleman explained to me the principle, I really liked it. Unfortunately, I agree, the practice is sometimes far from that. But at the same time, you can argue it's an agreement between two parties. And if you break the agreement, then... And unfortunately, they look for excuses. That's what you're saying.
I just find that if there's somebody knowledgeable enough, you could make them pay. And that's what I pride myself on doing, is the best job for my clients. Because they'll use it, it may be house insurance. They've broken through the door and they said, well, you haven't got a lock on your, on your window. It's not relevant at all. Anyway, I'll leave it there. It's just that I thought I'd take your input on that.
No, you're right. There's any?
Well, the question about the calf. Can I ask you some information? If I have an appointment, hospital appointment, it's calf time. If I sit in the calf, so can I go?
Okay. If a person is in the calf, you can only go out for your important essential needs. If a hospital appointment can be changed.
I have had to change twice before. So I can't again.
Okay, if in your heart you know it's very, very important, then I would say Bismillah. Okay, because you've tried your best, and it's very, very important. So I would say Bismillah. Yeah.
What about medical negligence and things like that?
Sorry, brother?
What about medical negligence if you do claim against the NHS or anything like that? Is that haram?
Oh, okay. You're talking about litigation now.
Yeah. Or would you class that as?
If somebody's made a mistake and
Medical negligence.
yeah, like medical negligence,
Yeah.
and a person has suffered as a result, it is Islamic to get some compensation.
So it's not.
But the compensation must be equitable. Yeah. For example, a surgeon has messed up in such a way a person is paralyzed for life.
Yeah.
So the insurance company will make sure they have enough money to be able to live a decent life. That's one of the important things about insurance. The surgeon can't afford that. So surgeons,
So it's halal.
I would say the principle is Islamic. Whether the practice is Islamic or not, I don't know, but the principle I would say is Islamic.
Maybe we could also insurance, like, I would say, no, from here, like, to say, if you over 10 years, you pay like about £3,000, £3,000, you got about £10,000, 10 years, like,
Is insurance or is...
insurance, there are insurance companies, like, say, over 10 years, you like, each year you pay certain amount.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, these like endowment policies. Yeah. Again, this shows investment, doesn't it? Because the endowment policy can rise up huge in value or very small value, and you get your investment back plus you get your profit back. I think that's Islamic. The only thing you can't control is where they invest their money. That's what you can't control. And there are ethical investment people or companies around now, and we should encourage that. But yeah, that's the insurance where you actually get your money back, and it's invested for you. I can't see anything wrong with that. That's actually Islamic principle.
And you mentioned these Muslim laws on your property invest or like
There's a difference of opinion on this. I don't accept there should be zakat on if you have more than one property. There should be zakat on that property. It's like having more than one car. Don't expect because the tools of your trade is no zakat on that. If you're a carpenter. On stock you might have to pay zakat. On stock, you have, say, £10,000 of stock you've had for a year, you should pay zakat on that. But your tools which you use, your saws, your equipment, your screwdrivers, your chainsaws, there's no zakat on the tools. And I would argue the houses you've got are your tools of your trade. So, although some people say, no, you pay on the equity of the house, but it's part of your business. I still have to be convinced. So I don't agree with that. I have to be convinced of that.
Can I ask a further question on mortgages? There's so many people that are saying obviously mortgages are wrong. I believe it's wrong as well, but I'm weak, I'm a human being. I'm not a prophet. My house is on mortgage. I know a lot of people that they've got loads, for rental. What's your personal opinion on that, and people that are doing this as a business? To me, whether it's right or wrong, I justify that I need a house for myself, but I wouldn't go out mortgaging other houses to rent. What's your view on that?
Look, there's a big difference of opinion amongst ulama. Each one has their own view. And I'll just say, go to your local alim, get his view, or see me afterwards, I'll give you my view.
what are your views on student finance? Student finance.
Okay, as far as I know, student finance is like a loan from the government. And you only start paying back the loan after you earn above a certain amount. Is that right? Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's absolutely fine. Sorry? Yeah, I think it's okay. Someone gives you a loan, government gives you a loan, you only start paying it back when you earn above a certain. That's actually very, very fair, very nice. The governments are trying to save money because when I was at university, they give you the grant and you never paid it back. And then when I think Blair introduced all this, it's a big change. But it's means tested as well. So if your parents aren't earning too much, you can get a better sort of grant, which is good. I think that's fine. Sorry? Oh, shrimps, yeah. No, shrimp, prawns. Yeah, makruh means it's disliked, you can eat it. I do eat prawns. Yeah, no, it's makruh. It's makruh doesn't mean haram, they're absolutely different. It's makruh.
It's not good, it's not bad.
It's disliked, but if you eat it, you can't, it's not a sin.
If it's disliked, then why would you eat it?
It's just a term in fiqh, because they have to classify it. They don't want to say it's haram, and so they've introduced something to makruh. It's disliked. Therefore, better not to eat, but if you eat, it's not sin. You're not committing a sin. No. Anything else? You've been very gentle with the questions. Thank you for that. And some audiences have been pretty vicious. Yeah. No questions? No. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب القبر وقنا عذاب الحشر وقنا عذاب الدين وقنا عذاب الميزان وأدخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين. اللهم اغفر لي ولوالدي رب ارحمهما كما